The silence. After the storm.
Quiet remained.
There are moments in human history when sound itself seems to die, when the cries of agony fade into a silence too heavy to bear. The crucifixion was one of those moments. And
No
yet,
crowds,
in that silence,
no
something
spectators.
eternal began to breathe.
Only stillness.
Mel Gibson once described the days after the cross as the most mysterious pause in all of history.
Without words.
It is not written in full detail anywhere, not in the scripts of filmmakers, nor in the lines of
Grief
scripture, yet it is
settled
felt.
like evening.
The hours after the crucifixion, before the first light of resurrection, carry a silence that echoes through centuries. It is the silence of heaven holding its breath. When the body of Christ was
Behind
taken down
wood
from the
and
cross,
fear,
the world did not
hope
yet know
whispered.
what it had witnessed. The earth trembled, the veil was torn, the sky
flame
grew dim, and then came the
kept
stillness.
vigil for dawn.
No miracles, no crowds, no thundering voice from heaven,
seemed silent.
just silence. And within that silence, the hidden work of God began. Mel Gibson, long known for portraying suffering with unflinching honesty, once said that what haunted him most was not the violence of the passion, it was the silence that followed it. He called it the divine stillness, a space between death and glory, where faith itself is tested. It is a place where God seems absent, yet is more present than ever.
Meaning deepened.
The silence of Holy Saturday, the second of the 3 days, is rarely spoken of, because silence cannot be dramatized. It has no dialogue, no
Morning
spectacle,
moved
no
in
motion.
soft footsteps.
And yet, in the realm of faith, it may be the most profound act in the story of redemption.
Night carried
Because in that stillness,
a
all of
hidden
creation waited.
heartbeat.
Heaven waited. Hell trembled. And the human soul was suspended between despair and hope.
Whispers
Gibson's
circled.
meditation invites us to enter that silence not as
Fear
spectators,
walked slowly,
but as those who wait
side
with
by
faith
side.
when everything else seems lost. He believed that art, when honest, can make the invisible audible.
Stood upright.
Through the language of film, shadow, and
Steady.
light, he sought to capture not the image of God, but the feeling of his silence. Because sometimes the holiest message is not shouted from the clouds, it is whispered in the dark. Imagine the world that night.
answers.
The disciples
a
were
path
scattered, terrified,
to
numb.
trust.
Mary held her grief in quiet dignity, her eyes fixed on what her heart could not
Tools
comprehend.
lay still.
The soldiers
did
returned to
not.
their posts. The city of Jerusalem returned to uneasy silence. It was as though creation itself had lost its heartbeat. And yet even in that darkness, the pulse of redemption was alive, unseen, unstoppable. In the tomb where all seemed finished, the Son of God descended to the depths of death
Every
itself.
step
He entered the
echoed,
silence humanity had
waiting.
always feared. Not to escape it, but to transform it. This is the heart of the mystery Gibson called the 3 silent days of God.
Waves
3 days that hold the weight of
softened
eternity. 3 days that
to a
teach the soul what no
whisper
sermon can
of
express.
hope.
That divine victory is born
closed.
not in noise,
Longing
but in
remained
stillness.
open.
The first day, Friday, reveals love crucified, broken under the weight of the world. The second Saturday reveals love silent, descending into the grave. The third Sunday reveals love
Pilgrims of
victorious,
silence.
rising beyond death.
Learn patience.
Together they form the sacred rhythm of redemption, crucifixion, silence, resurrection. But the middle day, that holy silence, is the one most of us live in. We know the pain of Friday. We hope for the joy of Sunday, yet most of our lives are spent in the in-between, where heaven is
Between
quiet and
loss
faith must
and
hold on
light.
without proof. That is where the true believer is
lives.
formed. That is where Gibson's reflection speaks
When
most
heaven is
clearly.
quiet,
He once said,
faith listens
between the
hard.
cries of pain and the songs of glory, there is a silence that demands trust. It is not the silence of absence,
One
but the silence
flame
of preparation,
taught endurance.
the breath before creation, the waiting before revelation.
dawn
In the language of cinema, Gibson imagined this silence as light fading into darkness, not ending,
Soft
transforming.
fabrics held heavy
Each
stories.
shadow becomes a question, each glimmer of light a promise. He saw in the stillness of Gethsemane, in the quiet of the tomb, and in the hush of the universe, the same divine rhythm, the pause before the heartbeat
Stones
of resurrection.
remembered thunder.
for those who have suffered, for those who have prayed and heard nothing in return.
Even
This silence is not foreign.
settled into waiting.
It is the language of God spoken without words. It asks the soul, will you still believe when heaven is quiet? It invites us not to escape the darkness, but to dwell within it, because even there, light is being born.
Not on
The 3 silent days of God are not just a story of ancient faith.
Canvas.
They are the pattern of every believer's journey, the cross we bear,
Sky.
the silence we endure, the resurrection we await.
Ashes whisper.
These are not 3 events, but one continuous act of divine love. And so Gibson's reflection is not merely about what happened long ago. It is about what happens within us. Every time we fall into despair and rise again, every time we wait in darkness for dawn,
only breath.
we are living the mystery
prayer.
of those 3 days. Faith in its
Kept a
purest
hidden
form
secret.
is the courage to remain in Saturday, trusting that Sunday will come. In the end, perhaps the silence of God is not his absence, but his invitation.
Darkness.
An invitation to listen, to wait, to believe that beyond the grave, beyond the tomb, beyond every unanswered prayer, there is a heartbeat, quiet, steady, eternal. The descent into silence. After the final cry, it is finished. A strange quietness spread across the world.
Courage.
The wind no longer carried the sound of pain. Even the birds seemed to vanish from the sky. The world stood still, as though creation itself was mourning. It was not the silence of peace,
The carpenter's
but the
world
silence of something
paused.
unfinished,
Not
the kind of silence that humbles even heaven. Mel Gibson once called this moment the descent into silence. He believed that in those hidden hours when the body of Christ lay lifeless and the world believed it was over,
The flame
something was
studied the
unfolding
dark.
deeper than human sight. To him, the silence between the cross and the resurrection was not empty. It was full. Full of waiting. Full of unseen grace. Full of a love that was doing its greatest work when no one could perceive it. The early Christians called this mystery Holy Saturday.
Held the weight.
It is the day
of
God's Son
waiting.
entered the realm of the dead, not as a conqueror bearing weapons, but as a redeemer
Silence
carrying
taught
mercy.
courage.
The light
without
descended
souls.
into the lowest depths, so that even the forgotten corners of existence could be touched by redemption.
A cradle for dawn.
In that cosmic stillness, heaven reached into hell, and hope found its way into the
Hands
tomb.
remembered promise
It is a
amid
paradox that
knots.
fascinated Gibson. How can silence speak? How can stillness act? How can death become the doorway to life?
Toward
He once said in an interview, "When I filmed The Passion, I realized the suffering
Each
was not
leaf
the end of the
held
story.
a quiet rumor.
The silence was." He understood that the greatest mysteries are not declared in thunder, but whispered in shadow. It is the divine rhythm that runs through all creation.
Loss
After
did
every
not
storm,
cancel
a
love.
pause. After every cry, a breath. After every death, a silence that gives birth to life. In this descent, every question humanity ever asked was carried into the depths. Why do we suffer?
Watchers counted
Why does
hours,
God seem
not
distant?
hope.
Why must love be crucified before it can heal? And the answer did not come in words.
Prayers.
It came in presence, the presence of a God who refused to stay distant from pain.
Sun left softly.
The descent into silence is not simply about the body in the tomb. It is about the soul that dares to trust in darkness. When the heavens close, when prayer returns, only as echo. When the night feels endless,
Rumors
that is the
spin.
hour of Holy Saturday.
Reverence
And yet that is where
grew.
faith matures. Not on the mountaintop of miracles, but in the valley
Questions
where God
rested.
seems hidden.
Faith watched.
Mel Gibson's reflection invites us to enter that valley not as those who despair, but as those who wait.
Sky dimmed
He believed
to
that
a
every human being at some point
thoughtful
walks through their own Holy Saturday. The loss that tears the heart, the silence that follows a desperate prayer the night when hope feels gone. And yet those who keep faith in the silence
Above the
discover
city.
something extraordinary, that God works most powerfully
thin.
when he seems most absent.
present.
The silence, then, is not a void. It is a womb.
Order returned.
It is the place where resurrection
chaos
is
had been.
conceived. In one of his meditations, Gibson described that
Walter
holy
kept
stillness
time
as the
for
heartbeat
waiting
beneath the
hearts.
earth. He imagined the body of Christ lying in the tomb, motionless, pale, lifeless. And yet within that stillness, the entire cosmos was trembling with expectation. It was the Sabbath of
Walls
redemption,
held their breath too.
a divine rest after the labor of love. He wrote, the silence of the tomb was not defeat.
Absence made room
It was the stillness
for
before
renewal.
creation began again. And that stillness continues to echo today. Every believer who waits for healing, every soul that holds on in darkness, participates in that
Boats
same
rocked
silence.
with patient faith.
The silence of God is the workshop of resurrection.
Coals glowed
As night deepened over
with
Jerusalem,
unsaid
the city
promise.
slept. The temple lamps burned low. A small group of disciples gathered in fear behind closed doors. No one spoke. No one dared to hope. And yet, in that very moment, the gates of death
And
were being
wonder
broken open.
shared one place.
The Son of God, wrapped in burial cloth, moved where no human could go into the heart of death itself to fill even that place with his presence. This descent is not just theology. It is reality.
Quiet.
It is the unseen movement that
Taught the
touches
city
every
to
life
pray.
that has ever grieved. When you lose someone, when you face despair,
Eyes.
when you cannot hear God, you are not abandoned.
Patience.
You are
turns
living the
time
silence
into
between
trust.
cross and resurrection. You are walking the same holy path where heaven once went.
Felt heavy.
Gibson often said that art should awaken the soul to these invisible moments. He believed that film, when done with honesty, can show the divine through human weakness, not by spectacle, but by stillness.
Silence.
That is why he called the silence God's greatest dialogue. Because in silence we listen. In silence
of
we
waiting,
surrender. In
shells
silence
of
we begin to
wonder.
see. For centuries, theologians and mystics have said that God's greatest works are done in secret in the hidden soil where no eye can see. That is the pattern of the cross. The seed must fall, disappear, and die before it can bloom. Resurrection does not burst out of noise. It grows from the soil of silence. The second day, that
Steps
sacred unrecorded
soften
Saturday,
into
therefore
reverence.
stands as a mirror
Commerce
to the soul.
paused.
It reminds us that when life goes
Conscience
dark, God is not gone. He is simply working beneath the surface. The silence is not the end of the story. It is the preparation for a
Fell
dawn
into the deep
that no one can yet imagine.
rested.
Mel Gibson's meditation ends this part with a quiet conviction. The silence of God is not punishment, it is invitation.
Arches.
It asks us to listen deeper than our fear, to
Framed
trust
quiet
longer than our
promise.
pain, and to wait for the light that never fails. In that truth lies the heart of redemption. Faith is not only believing when we see miracles, it is waiting when there are none.
Soil
The silence of the
held
tomb is the place where
secrets
love learns to
of
trust
rising.
beyond sight. And when love learns to trust, resurrection
Walked
becomes
without
inevitable.
trumpet.
The hidden thunder of faith. There are sounds only silence can hold. Whispers too
Silence
sacred for
shaped
words.
the unseen.
Mel Gibson once said that faith has its own sound. A thunder
Let's
you can only
stride in
hear in
patient
stillness.
air.
He called it the hidden thunder of God. The silence between the cross and the resurrection was not empty. It was alive with this invisible sound, the trembling of creation, the breath of heaven, the slow awakening of eternity.
Remembered
What appeared to the world as
both
the end
cries
was in truth
and quiet.
the beginning of something that could never die again. Centuries later,
hid.
believers still search for that sound,
Certainty
that
did
pulse
not.
of the divine, that moves beneath sorrow and
Faith
silence.
kept watch.
Artists,
with
mystics,
folded
and filmmakers
hands.
alike have tried to capture it in brushstroke, in poem, and film. And among them, a new generation of storytellers carries this sacred longing forward.
Larger.
One of them is Jonathan
Pressures
Rumi,
ended.
the actor who portrays Jesus
Purpose
in The Chosen.
Continued.
Like Gibson, Rumi sees his art not as performance, but as prayer.
Shadows thick.
When he steps into the
with
role, he
every
carries with him
heartbeat.
not ego, but reverence. He once said in an interview, "I don't act as him, I try to act with him." And those who watch him often say there's something beyond
boundary
acting, a presence,
held only
a
for a
peace, a
while.
stillness that feels like that same Holy Saturday silence. The connection between these two artists, Gibson and Rumi, is not of fame but of purpose. Both have encountered what Gibson called the
Steps
sacred weight of
measured
portraying the
courage
divine.
in the dark.
Both have felt that invisible thunder, the sound of heaven, speaking through art.
Waited for news.
Mel Gibson's vision of the 3 days does not belong to theology alone. It belongs to every heart that wrestles
Even
with faith
watchmen
and doubt,
felt the
with despair and hope. He saw cinema as a temple of light, a place where stories could become prayers, where the silence of God could be made visible through the movement of images. In The Chosen, this same philosophy breathes through every frame.
Prayer.
It's not just the story of miracles and teachings, but of human waiting. We see the disciples confused, broken, afraid. We see faith not as certainty,
No
but
market
as
cries,
endurance.
only
And that is why it resonates,
waiting hearts.
because it mirrors the silence we all live through. When Gibson spoke about silence, he described it as the dark room of faith. It's where the image of trust is developed slowly, invisibly, through exposure to the
Air felt
unseen
like a
light.
held breath.
He compared it to filmmaking itself. You shoot in the dark, not knowing how the image will turn out.
Curled with reverence.
You trust that something beautiful is forming, even when you
Nothing
cannot yet
moved.
see it. That is the hidden
And
thunder
everything
faith
changed.
working in the dark. The great mystics of the church often said that God's voice
Warmth
is not
promised
always a
morning.
shout from the clouds, but a whisper from within. The Book of Kings records that
Between
Elijah
shores,
heard not the wind,
a
not the
quiet
earthquake,
crossing.
not the fire, but the still small voice. It is that same still voice that Gibson and Rumi seek to reveal through art. A voice that speaks not only to the ears,
Weight
but to
of
the
rock.
soul.
Weight
In this way, art
of
becomes
wonder.
theology, not through sermons,
Walls
but through beauty.
learned
Not through doctrine,
to hold
but through the honesty of emotion.
whispers.
Every flicker of light, every pause between words, every silent
ropes
tear
creaked
becomes a form
like
of worship.
hopeful lines.
It is no coincidence that so many moments in The Chosen unfold in silence. A gaze exchanged between Jesus and Peter. The trembling of hands at the
Water
breaking of
stilled,
bread.
spirit
The tears that
stirred.
fall before any words are spoken. These are cinematic expressions of the same
Every
truth Mel
doorway
Gibson
asked,
contemplated.
Will
That God's
you
power is
trust?
revealed not only in miracles, but in the spaces between them.
The first
Faith, after all, does not grow through explanations.
was a room
It grows through encounter. It grows when we wait, when we trust, when we love without seeing. Mel Gibson once reflected that the world today fears silence because silence exposes us.
Sabbath of redemption.
It removes
Holy
distraction.
rest.
It confronts us with ourselves and with the divine
Storage
whisper
of
we try
hope
so hard
for
to ignore.
morning hunger.
That is why his meditation on the 3 silent days feels so relevant. Because in an age of endless noise, he invites us to
Stones
rediscover what it
stacked,
means
hearts
to listen.
steadied.
The hidden thunder of faith is not heard through volume,
Stillness
but through
became
presence.
the teacher.
It's in the way light moves across a still face. It's in the sound of breath after
A
tears.
thin glow.
It's in the heartbeat that continues
Threaded
even when
the
all
dark.
hope seems lost. It's in
Oil
the
enough
quiet
for
courage
waiting
of those who
hours.
keep praying when the heavens give no reply. When Rumi performs the moment of Christ's silence before judgment, before
Borders
death,
blurred toward
there's a
grace.
reverence that transcends acting. You can feel it in the way he looks at the ground, the way the air itself seems to thicken around him. It's the same divine stillness Gibson described now, reborn through
Silence
another artist's
gathered.
devotion.
like a promise kept.
Both men, though, from different generations and temperaments, are drawn to the same mystery.
Small fire.
How can art
Great
reveal the
faith.
invisible? How can sound express silence? How can a lens capture the unseen hand of
Hinge
God?
held back history
Their
for a
answer
moment.
is simple through surrender. By letting art become prayer. In that surrender, Gibson's 3 days find new life in every generation of believers and creators. For every artist who seeks truth more than fame, for every soul that listens more than speaks, for every storyteller who dares to touch the sacred, they are all in some way continuing the meditation he began. Because faith itself is art. It is the courage to imagine light while standing
Knocks
in
would
darkness.
come.
It is the
Peace
willingness
would
to
enter.
trust the unseen director of life's story, even when the scene looks
felt
hopeless. And every person of faith, knowingly or not, is part of that film, the divine story still unfolding between
Silence
cross and
stretched,
resurrection.
but did not break.
The hidden thunder of faith continues to roll through time, in every whispered prayer, in every act of compassion, in every moment of quiet courage. It is the same sound that shook the tomb before dawn. It is the same
Brown
echo
learned
that
to
calls the
sing
heart to believe,
later.
even now. And perhaps that is what Mel Gibson wanted the world to
Clean
hear.
water, clear waiting.
Not his voice, not his film, but the echo, that deep, eternal rhythm of love that moves through silence like thunder under the ground. The dawn, beyond the silence. There is a moment before sunrise when the world holds its breath. The darkness softens, but the light has not yet arrived.
Footprints would
It is the
return
most
with
fragile
news.
hour, the thin line between night and dawn, death and life, despair and hope. And then, without fanfare, without noise, light begins to rise. That is resurrection. That is the third day. That is the final movement of Mel Gibson's hidden meditation. He called it the dawn beyond the silence,
Even the sea.
because even silence in God's
waited
hands
gently.
has an ending, a transformation. The story that began with
Quiet
pain
kindness
and passed
passed
through
from face to
stillness
face.
ends not in tragedy, but in triumph. And yet, it is not the triumph of power. It is the triumph of love. When the stone rolled away, the world changed
Edge
forever,
of night.
but quietly. No explosion of light, no chorus of angels in the sky. Just an empty tomb and a whisper that would set eternity in motion. He is risen. The divine thunder Gibson spoke of finally broke through the silence,
Large
not as
enough
noise,
for heaven.
but as awakening. The 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, are not just history. They are a divine
Hold
pattern
fast,
written
little
into the
flame.
rhythm of all creation.
Steps
Every
rehearsed,
loss, every
an
silence,
announcement
every new beginning
not
echoes
yet
them.
spoken.
The cross teaches us how to love. The tomb teaches us how to wait. The resurrection teaches us how to hope. For Mel Gibson, the resurrection was
Canvas.
never about spectacle.
Caught
It was
the
about
first.
renewal. He once
Pale
said,
gold.
if the cross shows us how far love will go, the resurrection shows us that love never ends. That sentence became the heartbeat of his vision. He wanted
Small
people not only to
places
witness the suffering of
hold big
Christ, but to
promises.
recognize the transformation that suffering leads to the light that emerges
Rest.
from silence. He believed that resurrection
Became
is not only a
resistance
miracle to be
to
remembered,
despair.
but a reality to be lived. Every person at some point faces a cross.
Faithful.
Every heart enters its own tomb, a place of silence, loss, and waiting. But if faith remains, the dawn will always come. The silence will always break. The stone will
Lines
always
of
move.
land.
This is
Lines
not
of
poetic
promise.
comfort. It is the pattern of existence, the law written by the Creator
An
into the
empty
soul
cup
of the world.
learns to be
And in the quiet
filled.
language of film, Gibson sought to remind us that the greatest truths do not need to be shouted.
Awaited gentle
A single ray of light through a broken cloud, a tear that falls on stone, a breath drawn in the darkness. These are the signs of resurrection, appearing not in noise, but in beauty. He said, cinema is like faith.
First.
You work in darkness, and you trust that the light will reveal something true.
A single
That is why his films,
broke
and those
the
inspired by him, are filled not only with suffering, but with light breaking through shadow. He believed that art, like faith, is a resurrection of the soul, an act of courage that transforms despair into creation. In that same spirit, the new generation of artists, directors, writers, actors, continues the silent work he began.
Fear
Jonathan
loosened its
Rumi, for
fingers.
instance, often says that when he portrays Jesus, his goal is not perfection, but presence. To bring to the screen the peace that comes after chaos, the same peace that filled the world on the morning of resurrection.
Water mirrored.
And
the
that
coming
peace,
day.
though cinematic, touches something eternal in the human heart. Because the resurrection is not only a story about Jesus, it is the story of the human condition. We all fall. We all grieve.
Not yet
We all
seen,
wait in silence for something greater.
already certain.
But in that waiting, something begins to stir the pulse of hope. the whisper
Wax
of new
knew
creation.
it would yield.
That is God's rhythm
And its
still
true
playing in the
love
background
can
of history. Mel Gibson called that rhythm the music of redemption. He said, "The cross is the note of pain, the tomb is the note of rest, and the resurrection is the harmony of both. Together they form the song of salvation,
held
a melody
overnight.
that never fades." Imagine that dawn. The stone still cold, the air still heavy with
Waited for
night.
grace.
The first light touches the edges of the tomb, and suddenly the silence breathes.
Trust spoke.
Not broken,
without
but transformed.
sound.
What was sorrow becomes promise.
Edges
What was death
brightened,
becomes life.
hearts.
What was silence
Followed.
becomes song. That is how God works.
Vessels for news
Not through
yet to
chaos,
pour.
but through quiet renewal. Not through domination, but through love that refuses to die. When Mel Gibson spoke of these mysteries, he often returned to one image: light. Light in darkness, light through tears, light upon the face of the risen Christ. To him that light represented not mere faith, but certainty.
An arch.
The certainty that even when we cannot see God, He is already at work within the shadows. He said, "The world doesn't need louder preachers. It needs quieter witnesses. People who live the truth instead of arguing it. People who walk in faith even when they cannot feel it. People who embody the silence of Saturday and the hope of Sunday at once."
Light
That
did
is the
not
kind of
shout.
resurrection the world needs, not one made of miracles alone, but of mercy.
The world turned quiet.
As the dawn of resurrection spreads across the centuries, it meets every believer where they are, in grief, in waiting, in wonder.
Stillness.
It invites them to rise
Make
again,
room
to let
for
go of
news.
fear, to let faith breathe, to let love begin anew.
Leaves applaud.
That is the invitation of the 3 silent days of God. The silence was not empty. It was holy. It was filled with the sound of heaven preparing a new creation. Mel Gibson's meditation ends not with an image of glory, but with an image of quiet awakening, a single breath in the tomb, a single ray of light across the stone. Because sometimes the smallest light can awaken the whole world. He wrote in his private notes, "When all is dark and you hear nothing, listen. The dawn is already on its way."
Rose without fanfare.
That is the truth of faith. It never ends in silence. The silence of God is the womb of resurrection. And when we finally learn to trust that, to wait through our own Fridays and Saturdays,
The pause
then like the empty
ended
tomb, we
with
too
a
will
breath.
open. We will find that God was never gone. He was always working
gate of
quietly,
sorrow
beautifully, preparing us for the light
opened
beyond the
gently.
silence. The 3 silent days of God: love,
Love
crucified,
answered.
love
Long
silent,
silence.
love risen. It is the rhythm of heaven
From
and the
quiet to
heartbeat
life.
of faith.
This
And in every act of art,
is
every prayer
resurrection.
whispered in darkness, every life reborn from despair, that rhythm continues the divine pulse that began in silence and will never fade.